Hey everyone, I'm Mackenzie Lane from the Burbank International Film Festival, and today we're continuing our interview series Beyond the Frame with Vito Trupiano and Alyx Ruibal from the feature film Hellbent On Boogie. Vito is the writer and director, and Alyx co-stars as the character Quinn alongside Shiloh Fernandez, John Farley, Emily Tremaine, and Doreen Llorenea. We are thrilled to have Hellbent On Boogie as one of the festival's 7 features this year. I absolutely loved this film. I was so pulled in the entire time. I just loved the story, the characters, the score, and the cinematography. I'm so excited to be speaking with Vito and Alyx today. Hi, how are you guys doing?
Hi.
Good.
How you
Thanks
doing
for having
today?
us.
Well, thank you both so much for being here. We really appreciate it. And congratulations on being an official selection.
Thank you.
My first question is, I want to hear from you what Hellbent on Boogie is all about.
It's about a young girl who's sort of over-sheltered, living in a Christian retreat with her overbearing mother, and she wants to do this dance competition, and her wayward, sort of rebellious brother comes to town and helps her chase after her dreams while also outrunning some of his demons.
You heard from your brother at all lately?
Mom said he's probably in jail or dead or something.
I could see him in jail.
Look at you, you're all grown up. Look like a farmer.
You kind of look like a homeless person.
Damn.
What are you gonna do now?
I don't know. What about you?
The American Dance Challenge. It's this dance team. There's a cash prize for the winner.
And how much?
10,000.
$10,000? 2, 3, 4.
And what inspired you to write this story?
The main thing that was driving me was seeing like a modern version of like what a flash dance sort of was back in the day, more in line with like a Little Miss Sunshine. I'd say like the writing, what I was writing and the characters was like Badlands and like Paper Moon, those sort of films. But then the packaging was much more of like Flashdance. So that's how I pitched it. It was like Flashdance meets Little Miss Sunshine. So, oh, and Silver Linings Playbook was another big inspiration as far as like the structure and how that film sort of handled the mental health aspect and like him coming back home and then there's like a dance piece at the end. So I was definitely wanted to do like a dance film, like something that at least had like the packaging of like a modern day dance film, but then sort of pulls the rug out from under you for something that's more character driven.
The cast is incredible. I'd love to hear what the casting process was like for this.
My producer Gregory Thomas like really took on a lot. I threw like a bunch of books at him, and then this movie idea settled on this through a long story. But the casting, a lot of it was through people he knew. The Florida Project is like a known film around in Florida when I was living there at the time, and so I knew people that had worked on it and like looked up the casting people and called them and just was like sort of asking around. But we always knew like or I at least always knew the central Quinn was the movie for me. I wanted somebody that was actually on the spectrum. And so we went through like over 2,000 girls just through like different websites and casting directors and stuff like that. And we got the money and everything. We were ready to go. And I was like, if I can't find Quinn, the movie just doesn't work. Because even if if there's like a really authentic center with her, then like the whole film will just ring true. Gregory Thomas, our producer's nephew, found Alyx on TikTok, whatever years ago it was. And so I sent her an email and we went back and forth, sent her the script. But it was cool then because she's never acted before either, for her to sort of like learn as she went and then create a character that's separate. It's like a part of her, but separate from herself. So,
Alyx, what was it like for you playing Quinn and your first acting job?
It was interesting because when we first talked about Quinn, we talked about it being me, but her name being Quinn. As it progressed, I think when it came to me trying on her wardrobe, when we got to Florida, I don't know exactly what happened, but something changed within me. There was always like a little thing that like just needed to click for it to work, like for me to really get into like that space. Because I had questions about where things were coming from, like just certain things when I was reading the script. And part of that was maybe being a non-actor and not quite knowing how a script read yet. Those little nuances. Sometimes when you're reading a page and things come off one way when you're like looking at it versus when you're thinking about embodying it. I put on her clothes and her shoes, very specifically her shoes, because she has like these shoes you'll see in the film. She has like kind of a couple of different pairs of very like significant shoes that she wears throughout. And I think when I put those on and the clothes, and that's really when I felt like her. And then the script, all of a sudden, nothing changed about it, but it changed, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I would love to know, because there's a lot of dancing in the film.
Yeah.
As a dancer yourself, did you choreograph those dance?
No. That we left that to the great Ryan Ramirez. She is amazing, incredible dancer herself. We worked on that for 2 days out in LA. Very long days each day. So fun those 2 days. And Ryan is awesome, and she made an amazing piece. So
Was it like a 3-hour drive too?
Yeah, 3 hours, but it was also like a 6 or 7 hour day each day for rehearsing.
That dance sequence is long. It was a lot of choreography, and it was like very intricate.
There's so much of the dance that nobody sees. I've talked to Vito so many times about I'm like, can I post the full sequence? I was like, someday I will post that full sequence.
It was actually written in the script as a 4-minute like continuous piece. For a lot of reasons, you're just like always up against it with filmmaking, and so you're having to like make adaptations and change. And that's where I like to think, like, when you really know what the movie is and what it's about, you can like face those obstacles. When people say like the movie will find itself, I think it's like through obstacles. Like if you run, oh, your location for the house is gone, which happened to us as well. It's been replaced. So everything for the next week, shot list wise, is now has to change. And the lenses you had were for this specific reason, but you don't have it anymore. So in that case, like convention center dance sequence stuff, that was supposed to be like a 12-hour day to do like the 4-minute piece, which even that isn't a lot to do like that sustained of a piece. So I underestimated the amount of work, but then that got turned into like 4 hours, I think it was 4 to 6 hours. When we got to the edit, there just wasn't enough to like sustain like the energy in an entertaining way for 4 minutes. And then in the edit that you saw, like what it does, sometimes you can't write it, like it has to like reveal itself. And like having to like change the idea of like the ethos of what the scene is doing. It was way less like cool. Look at how she's doing it, and it was way more about like the motions of it and the love of the process of her just like losing herself. What was written was like it's her memory. It's like showing that she can remember, and she doesn't have that much. Like she's fine, and she's just that she's over sheltered. But it didn't feel that way. So you make a movie 3 times, you like write it, and then when you're shooting it, and then when you're editing it, it changes slightly. So that's one of those ways. And some people don't do that, but I'm a director more than a writer. So I'll write ideas with emotions and stuff, and then it will always continue to unravel as I'm like going about making it.
I'd love to talk a little bit more just about the ensemble cast, because I mean, it's amazing. Alyx, I'd love to know what it was like for you working with the different cast members.
First of all, I was definitely really nervous coming into this. Just the concept, I felt like a little bit like a horse that was being bet on. Like when people bet on horses and horse races. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, people put money into it, people invest into a project. And so I'm like, okay, felt it sitting on my shoulders a little bit. And so I just remember going into it and meeting like Shiloh, John, Emily, and like Doreen, like, cause she, even though she's a non-actor, she really came into it really knowing what she was doing. I just want to make sure I can keep up with all these people, because I don't want to be the one who slows everyone down. I just remember meeting Shiloh for the first time and just feeling this sense of like, oh, okay, we're good. Just feeling this calming sense and really feeling like I was around family, just with really everybody, whether it was cast or crew. When I met Shiloh and Emily, and when I met everybody, I felt this sense of calmness that was like, okay, yes, it's a lot of pressure. Yes, a lot's going on. Yes, there's a lot of moving parts here. It's not just me, and I feel comfortable around these people, and these people are here to take care of me as much as I am here to take care of them. So it's a really amazing process. And everybody was just so like welcoming too. Like Shiloh and I would like go do things together on set, and so would Emily, like me and Emily, and we just all got really, really, really close. So it was awesome.
Aww. I love that. And Vito, some favorite moments for you now, looking back at the film.
Yeah, I mean, there's like favorite moments in the movie, but a lot of it is like, especially hearing Alyx talk about it from her perspective, it was definitely when seeing that character come to life. And like, it's funny when it's talking about it from her point of view, like being a horse that's bet on. Um, it's so hard, right? You're like, it's everyone's so dependent on you, and then you have to be vulnerable and real, and then everyone's staring at you. And so I was trying to like from the ground up build the film for Quinn. Just little things like in Florida, it's just a different atmosphere than LA. So there's a lot of like male camera teams. So I was like, I need to get some females on the camera team so she's not staring at like four bearded dudes pulling focus. And so I was doing all like everything was from that point of view. I was like, how do I make this person comfortable to act? And then ironically, she was probably like the most like sturdy stone of the movie, and like there's so much anxiousness and you're always trying to like find ways to not feel anxious or like maybe feel comfortable because you're doing pretend time, you're doing adult pretend time in front of cameras, and the more loose and relaxed you are, the more like creative juices flow and you'll try things. The first thing is her at the cross and a very opening, so we started chronologically, but then the other stuff is when Shiloh and her are, she's like holding the secret of like she wants to do the dance competition. And so you'll see like the cameras are far. The whole idea was like, let's get the cameras away from her and just be a little more voyeuristic. So like they don't have these metal machinery things in front of their face. But again, ironically, like it could have been like werewolves behind the camera and she would have been fine. Like she was always remembered her line on continuity, like just as much as our script soup, like to the point where partway through the filming, Shiloh, it was raining, so we had to take a break. And Shiloh was like, "Hey, I think she might be like a genius." I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "She's keeping up with continuity in ways that like veteran actors do, and she's just doing it." And then like so much of the stress came off my back because from the beginning I said, if I just have her that feels real enough, everything else is fine. Like it's just trying to like find moments, and we shot in like 16 days, so it's like a mad sprint, which a lot of movies have done that timeline before, but it's always a lot, and especially for like a first time for a lot of people. But that's what's great about having Shiloh come in with so much experience. So another favorite moment was like him moving chairs when we were doing craft services. Like he had told me on the phone, he's like, I've never done a movie for this budget, so I don't know what I'm getting into. And so I told him, I'll tell you exactly what you're getting into. We're staying at the hotel on the grounds, like we're gonna live in this environment. And so he was playing tennis like at the retreat, and so like people were going around like there's a movie star on the grounds, like really funny. But yeah, again, he was like moving chairs and he was just game, and there was like a lot of humbleness from everyone all around. But it was a passion project, and it was like piecing together anybody that was on it was a friend or I had worked with in some way, or somebody I know vouched for them, or in some way there was like some 2-degree connection. The crew and everything was just such a family oriented group. That was the type of energy. And I think that's what the film is. And it's funny to be in the edit and then even doing the score. Another favorite moment would be the score. Like when we finally heard the sounds, the opening sounds, I was like, oh, that's the movie. Like it's like reminiscent of Badlands, but a lot more delicate and a little more earnest. Whereas like Badlands is doing a good juxtaposition, where this is like a lot more almost naively earnest in a good way, and it's what the film is. There's a lot of good frame moments. I'd say in the movie there's a shot. It's when the everyone's a winner montage plays. It's like panning across all the old people dancing, and it lands on Emily, and she like looks back at Shiloh, and then he walks. I think at that point you're most like, oh, this is Flashdance. Oh, I see what this is doing. I see what this movie's doing. There's a romance here, and I think at that point you're most sold on that idea, and then it starts to shift into what I think is a more modern conversation about dreams and failure and mental health and sort of things like that. So
Is this your first feature film that you've directed?
technically, yes. When I was 20 or I turned 21, I did. It was like more experimental. It's about a jacket, like going from person to person through one night in Miami. Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, but with a jacket in Miami for one night. Yeah, I just like took my own savings and a camera and my dad's van and just made something. And then I ran into like later, like, oh, like legitimate film festivals won't take it unless it's a certain length to be called a feature. So I like went out and made something, and I think I learned. It was just like a process to learn. But again, I used that film when Shiloh saw that film was called Waste Case. He was like, "Oh, when I read the script and then saw Waste Case, I knew we're going to make a movie. He's like, he had done one before. I can see the style in there and the voice. He was like, let's do this. So it ended up getting me where I am.
Do either of you have upcoming projects that you can share about that we can keep an eye out for?
I just moved out to Los Angeles and I'm writing 2 things and trying to leverage off this feature into some other possibilities. So
Well, that's exciting. Welcome to LA.
thank you.
What about you, Alex?
I am moving closer to LA in a couple months. I've kind of been like staying a little under the radar, and I'm currently working on getting back online and getting on social media and seeing where that goes from there. And then hopefully this is not the last time I'm acting. So kind of seeing where it goes from here.
I have a feeling it's definitely not the last time. This is an amazing project that you both have so much to be proud of.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, I'd love to ask if either of you have advice for aspiring actors and filmmakers.
Yeah, you just keep chipping away at the wall long enough, and sometimes like a crack will appear and then you can push through. But yeah, that's the only advice I can really give is just like do it. Keep the light of the North Star and not be bitter and enjoy the process. Then I just like the process of it. So it was never like goal oriented. It was always just like I was like 7 years old, just like making Lego Studios, like stop motion stuff, made goofy videos in high school and college, and always thought it was a hobby. And then when I was like, oh, I have to like have a career, I guess I'll do video stuff. Maybe I'll do sound or something. And then just like kept getting more into it. So it was always like just doing stuff. I was always making things and then coming around and being like, oh, maybe there's like a career out of this. Focusing on process and making things and doing things like is really what matters. And then like when you have anything that like catches any sort of traction, then you start thinking like, okay, now this is a business. People do this as a career. Like you got to package things, and how do you impress people? How do you meet people? Like all that stuff comes once I think you have an understanding of process. So yeah, like the retreat was a location I found by working on a reality TV show. The lighting package I got for cheap because I worked at a grip house for 2 years and cleaned raw stuff C stands like and learned about lighting gear. I worked on like MTV reality shows and producing and like learning about logistics of scheduling and stuff. Like just put in the work and made a living and did stuff and was always had a North Star of this script I'm writing, and how do I get this made?
Just like being really in the moment, I would just like learn what I was supposed to say, know what I was supposed to say, to the point where like it was muscle memory a little bit, like where it just you're not thinking about your lines, you're just in a moment with somebody and then the lines just kind of naturally flow out. I would just get myself to that point on set. I knew my like what scenes we were doing. I would just prep those and then in hair and makeup just do them over again, and then being in the moment and then being really ready to like take direction from anyone and everyone. So then what I'm saying isn't necessarily the like main focus in my head. It's just, oh, what does Vito need from me? What does Shiloh need from me? What's Shiloh going to do? Maybe we improv at the end of the scene or right before the scene, and like that might do it too. Or maybe it gives like the scene a new life. I think there was a scene later in the film where Emily and I were improving at the end of the scene, and it gave the scene a whole new life. And Vito, I think you know which scene I'm talking about. It's like towards
Was
the
it in
end.
the kitchen, like, or on
Yeah.
the sunset, or in the kitchen?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like I think about the ADT stuff or like what's on
Mhm.
TV or something.
Yeah. And I think you asked us to improv, and I think when we did that, I think it gave the scene just a lot of clarity. I feel like a lot of times with acting and scenes and stuff, there's this switch where it's like this like level of understanding of the scene where it's like, oh wait, I get it now. Like there's the studying it, there's the looking at it, there's the verbalizing it, and then there's this thing that clicks, at least for me in my head, where I'm just like, oh, okay, it makes sense now. That definitely helped. So once I did that, then like the mental block just kind of came down.
You definitely don't sound like someone who just did their first movie. Like you sound like you've been doing this for a while and it shows in your performance. So it's cool to hear from Vito's perspective about how you were so good with like the continuity and stuff, because you definitely have a gift for it.
Thank you.
Thank you guys again for taking the time to meet and give us an inside look at Hellbent on Boogie. It's a beautiful film.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, we're super excited to play. It's our West Coast premiere, so.
And for our viewers, Hellbent on Boogie will be screening on Friday, September 27th at 7 p.m. at the AMC 16 Burbank, and will be followed by a Q&A with the cast and crew. For tickets, visit burbankfilmfest.org. We hope to see you there. Bye.
You